Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Nerd Mode, this being a show where I introduce you to a series that you may or may not be familiar with. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the Netflix original series, Altered Carbon. Like always, this isn't a review, it's just me talking about a series that I really like and I recommend you check out for yourself. Altered Carbon is an action sci-fi drama series in a future where humanity has traveled the stars and technology has made immortality a reality. I'll go into that a little bit more later on. The series follows our main protagonist, Takeshi Kovacs, a man with a long criminal history. He's the sole survivor of a group known as the Envoys. They were basically well-trained soldiers that a lot of time get labeled as terrorists by most people. 250 years after his imprisonment, Takeshi is released into the ownership of a guy named Lauren Bancroft. Bancroft didn't release Takeshi out of the goodness of his own heart. He did it because he wants something from Takeshi. He wants Takeshi to solve a murder, and that murder is Bancroft's murder. It's a whole thing. Picking up a few allies along the way, Takeshi works to solve Bancroft's murder while also trying to find his place in a world that has long since left him behind. Living a long time doesn't make the past any less inescapable. That's something that Takeshi is constantly reminded of, downright haunted by. What I really like about this series is its blending of genres. It has this very detective noir-like style to it, mixed in a very cyberpunk world, which I think that's so interesting when you kind of like take the bright and colorfulness of like a cyberpunk world and kind of put that on top of this kind of sometimes dark and dreary atmosphere. Which, speaking of cyberpunk, is actually crazy the levels of technology in this series. Whether it be stacks, which I'm gonna get into that a little bit later on, AI hotels, which that's a whole thing in itself as well. And then at the same time, there's also technology that you can basically implant into, people's bodies to make them basically superhuman. And then there's the detective side of things, long list of suspects, old-fashioned detective work mixed with, technology, which interestingly enough, this job is actually perfect for Takeshi because as an envoy, it all kind of falls under his skill set. What I also think is kind of another interesting element about this show is how it goes about presenting Takeshi's past. The fact of the matter is we kind of get his background a little out of order. Understanding everything that Takeshi has been through and how that led to him becoming an envoy and how that led him to getting to where he is right now in present day. Well, I say present day, but obviously present day of the series. You get what I'm trying to say. Okay, now that all of that's through, let me go back and explain how things work in this world, in particular stacks. Well, earlier I brought up the whole thing about technology and immortality. Well, in this universe, there are these devices known as stacks. Stacks are basically these things that are implanted in people when they are 1 year old. Basically, it contains everything that you are, your personality, your memories, basically everything that makes you, you. You can kind of basically think of it as like a technological soul. And because a stack contains everything that you are, even when your body dies, you're able to take this stack and implant it in a different body. In this universe, bodies are known as sleeves. Do know that just because your body dies doesn't mean that you die. However, if your stack is destroyed, it is permadeath. There is no coming back from that. As I said earlier, in this series, bodies are referred to as sleeves, showing you that bodies are seen as something that's disposable. And because of that, people kind of have this mentality of kind of taking life and death for granted. Especially when it comes to the rich and powerful, those being people known as meths. They're basically people who have lived for a very long time. They are wealthy enough to buy backup copies of their stacks, which is something not everyone has the money and position to do. Meaning even if their stack is destroyed, they have many backups, giving them almost a more truer sense of immortality compared to other people. It creates this very new and intriguing take on the divide of social statuses and classes, the 99% and the 1%. To me, it's one of my favorite aspects about this series. I just really enjoy the philosophical and moral implications in the series. There's also, interestingly enough, a spiritual angle to this because there's actually a group of people in this series who don't believe people should come back to life. They believe death should be permanent. The whole thing in its entirety is so fascinating. I figured I might as well note that this series can be quite bloody and it has quite a bit of nudity. I figured I might as well include that disclaimer. Altered Carbon is based on a trilogy of novels known as the Takeshi Kovacs series. Altered Carbon is the name of the first novel in the trilogy. Season 2 of Altered Carbon premieres on February 27th. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.